What is the thing that surprised you the most when you traveled to a country you had never been to before? My first trip to New York. Entering the subway, someone walked in front of another person, causing them to break their stride for a fraction of a second, which led to the following exchange without pause or hesitation from either party. Shouted at each other as they walked in opposite directions. "You're an asshole. Your mother's an asshole. You don't even know who your mother is. She knows you're an asshole." Fade. Northwestern Australia. I knew it had a reputation for being ridiculously hot, but legitimately didn't know Earth got that hot and humid. I thought I was going to pass out leaving the airport. I walked out of Penn Station when I first arrived in New York, looking up at the buildings, taking it all in, and my first interaction was with a homeless guy who shouted at me in the local accent, "Welcome to New York, asshole." It was exactly as I imagined. That it's possible to weave through Cairo traffic with the skill of a seasoned rally driver while driving a manual transmission car, frequently using the horn and sipping tea by holding the saucer, not the cup, at the same time. Shout out to our taxi driver in Cairo. This reminds me of when I went to Cairo. We came out of the train station and couldn't work out how the heck we were supposed to cross like 6 lanes of traffic that didn't seem to follow any road rules. A nice man took pity on us and just stuck his arm out and started walking across all 6 lanes. The cars all stopped. No one beeped, and we scurried after him with our rucksacks. Still blows my mind. From a tropical country near the equator, I was surprised to know that the sun would set completely before 4 PM during winter, or having the sun still up at 10 PM during summer. This messed me up so much the first time I went to a equatorial country. The weather is summer, but the sun sets at 6. That makes no sense. Lived in equator my whole life. Never had to think about sunrise and sunset time. Thought those timing I see on weather forecast app are useless. My whole life sunrise and sunset is always 6. Yeah, this so much. Live in India. Sunrise is 6 AM. Sunset is 6 PM. Literally anything else doesn't matter. Went to Paris. Sun shining at 9:30 PM. My brain malfunctioned. What the duck is going on here? Went to Zurich. Sunset at 4 PM. Excuse me, bud, seriously. What the duck? Scandinavia is even worse. Even as far south as Oslo, Norway, in the summer the sun would still be up at 11. Maybe a couple hours of darkness. Up again at 4. I haven't been during the winter, but it's the opposite. Dark almost all of the time. A few hours of sunlight. The amount of eye contact and observation. When I went to Morocco, in the evening the streets would be packed full of families sitting and talking. These people would watch each other. In fact, even the way I'm describing it with watch shows how unwelcome and uncomfortable it would be in England. People would also make eye contact and keep it frequently on the street, just with ease. It felt so strange for me at first. In Prague, when you open a camera in the street, it's like a force field. People automatically moves aside to not stand in the way. Good luck doing the same in Valletta. Maltese person here. The problem isn't the attitude, it's that 1. The streets are too narrow. Valletta was built for defense, and therefore has a lot of alleyways, narrow roads and sharp turns, which condense people into each other. There is simply no space to move to take a picture. The only exception in Valletta is Fountain Tritoni, which is quite simple to take pictures of from my experience. 2. General overpopulation. The road from the entrance of Valletta is always crowded because it leads to everywhere and has all industrial attractions. You would have a far different experience in the barracks. For example, the attitude is definitely present, but irrelevant in the scenario. Fellow part Maltese person checking in. The problem definitely seems worse around the summer months. During peak tourist season, Valletta and dinner are no good for the reasons you've mentioned. I usually go to one of the villages in Gozo just purely because it's quieter. Sure, there's not as much history as the main island, but for a quieter getaway it fits the bill and is just as picturesque. Marcel Fawn, Ramla, Zlendi, though the detours are making those places just as busy. The incredible security in Seoul. I'm from Latin America, so I'm used to be very alert at everything, everywhere. I forgot my backpack in a small cafeteria, and after 25 minutes it was completely under shade in the same spot. You could walk at 3 AM with your cell phone in your hands and there'll be no fear about anything. My friend was once studying in a cafe in Korea and went home for maybe 20 minutes to change his laundry over. Left his laptop and phone on the table in the cafe because he knew they'd still be there when he got back. And they were. The exception to this is bicycles. Bicycles get stolen pretty often in Korea. No idea why that's the exception. Everyone always carries a mate cup and thermos in Argentina. Even cops drive around drinking from their little cups with the metal straws. It is totally normal that you can buy matching cup and flask with your handbag, dress, etc. I was looking for something about Argentina. I lived there in 2007. It's a beautiful country. Also, people in Buenos Aires don't eat breakfast or get up early. I'm not a morning person by any means, but it was crazy to be up at 7:30 and see the only thing open was the newspaper stands. And forget about eating anything other than a media luna from McDonald's or a piece of fruit or a yogurt from a Quiasco before noon. I studied abroad in Argentina through a program run by a US university, so our classes were just with Americans in the program. School started at 7:30 am. It was a really weird walk up right to campus because nobody was out. It was even worse having experienced Porto Thirsty Thursday before Friday classes. Heated sidewalks in Finland. Absolutely lifesavers for me who had no idea how to walk on ice. No trash anywhere either. Adding to this, icy sidewalks. Didn't think about it because I wasn't somewhere with obvious snow, but turned a corner in Vancouver and basically surfed down a block and a half. Probably only didn't eat pavement because I'd just been skiing for a week. See, the problem is you visited between February 10th through 12th. Everyone here knows those are our 3 official snow days. Legally, only rain is allowed outside of those days. Interesting. In Sweden we have this very strict policy of mixing rain with snow, and the snow may only stay for 2 days maximum. And the laws also state that it must rain all summer, apart from 1 week which is cloudy with a small chance of sunshine. This has caused panic for the last 2 or 3 years, which have been incredibly hot and dry during the summer. Scandinavians always look forward to the annual BBQ during nice weather. Lately Scandinavia is having a mental breakdown every summer after booking every day for several weeks and realizing that there is such a thing as too much booking. Ashgabat, Turkmenistan, everything about it. The entire city, every building is white marble. It lights up at night like a sterile Las Vegas. However, there is no advertising except for billboards of the dictator holding on to puppies by the neck to show everyone how nice he is. He has pretty much positioned himself as a religious prophet. The airport is shaped like a massive white marble eagle. It used to be a red building, but soon after it was built they tore it down and built a white marble one to match the current decor. Also, there is no white marble in Turkmenistan, so it has to be imported from Italy. They were the largest importer of white marble in the world and drove the price up so high it cost them ridiculous amounts of money to build the buildings. Strange place. Turkmenistan's post-Soviet history can be explained, in part, by their batshit crazy dictator, Sapamirid Niyazov. Some of his decrees include banning the use of lip-syncing at public concerts in 2005, as well as sound recordings at musical performances on state holidays, in broadcasts by Turkmen television channels, at all cultural events organized by the state, in places of mass assembly, and at weddings and celebrations organized by the public, citing a negative effect on the development of musical arts incurred by the use of recorded music. Banning dogs from the capital, Ashgabat, because of their unappealing odor. Ordering that a palace of ice, or indoor ice skating rink, be built near the capital, so that those living in the desert country could learn to skate. The rink was built in 2008. Banning smoking in all public places on account of his having to quit because of some heart surgery he had, and ordering his government workers to follow suit. Chewing tobacco on Turkmen soil was later banned as well. Outlawing opera, ballet and circus performances in 2001 for being decidedly un-Turkmen-like. Banning men from having long hair or beards. Banning news reporters and presenters from wearing makeup on television. He abolished the Turkmen word for bread. for it to be replaced with Gerben Sultan, his mother's name. Likewise, he gave the month of April his mother's name, discouraging the use of gold teeth in Turkmenistan after he suggested that the populace chew on bones to strengthen their teeth and lessen the rate at which they fall out. He said, "I watched young dogs when I was young. They were given bones to gnaw to strengthen their teeth. Those of you whose teeth have fallen out did not chew on bones. This is my advice." Their current dictator is definitely cut from the same cloth as this dude. In Thailand we were watching a movie and they played the national anthem and everyone stood up for their king. I'm in Thailand at the moment. There have been huge protests and speaking out against the monarchy for the past year or so, which is dangerous as it's illegal, with severe penalties. I went to watch a film a few weeks ago and only around half the people in the cinema stood up during the showing of the King's video before the movie. It's not actually the national anthem, just some rousing nationalist song with clips of him in ceremonial dress. This may not sound like a big deal, but it was absolutely unthinkable, even 2 years ago, for half the people to show such disrespect and to remain seated during that part. Living in Thailand for 13 years, I can tell you the people loved their old King Rama IX that sadly passed away. He was the most beloved person in the country. He had so many projects and undergoings that helped the quality of life for so many people in Thailand. He was very connected to his country and people. I know for a fact everybody would pause and stand if his anthem was played anywhere out of voluntary action. I've never seen such respect for a king. On the other hand, his son, who is now the king of Thailand, King Rama X, is much disliked compared to the other king due to his lifestyle and carelessness for the country. That's why they are protesting the monarchy. They know King Rama IX won't be topped by any successors, so might as well end it. I say good for them. They shouldn't be bowing to someone that doesn't care much for them. German Boulevard media is having a field day with Vajiralongkorn's tactics of renting out almost an entire highly expensive motel to do nothing of note other than play around with his harem and apparently conceive illegitimate children. This and the photos where he's running around with a tank top and hot pants, acting like he's high as a kite. Reminder, this guy's and some rich kid barely past his teenage years or someone in a midlife crisis. He's almost 70 years old. Can't imagine why he might be unpopular with struggling Thai common folk. I moved to Denmark a couple of years ago, and the biggest culture shock for me was Julefrokost. Julefrokost translates to Christmas lunch, which sounds like a nice, wholesome lunch to celebrate the holidays. The first time I went to one, my husband warned me not to eat anything beforehand, because there is a lot of food. I didn't think much of it. I mean, we had Thanksgiving and the use, so I just assumed it was a big lunch. No, we have nothing like this in the use. Julefrokost is on an entirely different level. You see, it's a lunch only in name. What it really is sitting down at about noon and not getting up from your seat again until midnight or later. The food never stops coming. The schnapps never stop coming. It's course after course after course, and the dames can drink you under the table any day. So combine that with strong liquor over a 12-hour stretch and you are likely to die. My first Julefrokost, I sat across from my husband's uncle, who kept my shot glass full the entire day. I was drunk by 2 p.m. and full to the point of bursting at 3 p.m. I have never been so sick as I was the day after my first Julefrokost. I'm Canadian and don't really drink. When I visited my European relatives, I learned that if your wine palinka snaps glass was empty, they'll fill it. They'll just keep filling it, no matter how many you've had. So I got into the habit of always leaving my glass half full, unless I really wanted another. It considered rude to leave a guest's glass empty. You aren't really supposed to ask to fill it. Host is supposed to be attentive and notice. Also, it usually is the man's job to fill the glasses, but more so for older generation. I noticed in Thailand it's the role of the youngest man at the table to keep everyone's glass full. A large beer or two are ordered at a time and doled out around the table, starting with the oldest being served first, then guests. But same deal. If you finish your glass, it's full again before you even realize it. I was surprised that in southern US and many other parts of it too. I'm sure you actually need a car to get anywhere, as in, it doesn't just make life easier. It's a near impossibility to go places without it. Even if you're in a major city, This is 90% of the US. The only places you don't need a car are in major cities. Edit since everyone and their mother are saying not all cities. Major cities have bus systems most of the time. You can get around without a car. It's inconvenient and time consuming, but it's usually possible. A few years ago we went to Italy and I made my wife go on a side trip to Herculaneum and Pompeii for a couple days. In Herculaneum we were wandering around in town when 5:00 PM rolled around, and within 15 minutes the streets were filled with people, not hurrying past one another, but just standing around talking, having an ice cream, drinking a beer, or whatever. Singapore is unbelievably clean. As soon as I stepped out of the plane, I swear I did not see a single speck of dust at their airport. Even the toilets were squeaky clean and completely dry. Every day I go out to explore the city by foot and come back to the hotel with almost no dirt on the soles of my shoes. Singapore is a really funny country to me. Through passport control I was given a leaflet telling me if I was a drug mule I would be prosecuted and executed. Welcome to Singapore. Wonderful place that I really enjoy. But it's just such a funky beginning to your visit that I've never been able to get out of my head. The indoor gardens by the bay is incredible. I went to the Caribbean when I was younger to some of the smaller islands, and I was shocked by the level of poverty that exists there. This was almost 20 years ago now, so could be different today, but at the time pre-internet, and being young and naive, all I'd ever seen about the Caribbean was the white sand beaches on TV, but it was quite an intense experience. Went to the Caribbean 2 years ago. Still high poverty. They rely heavily on tourism. We did an excursion around the town and donated stuff to the local schools. For those wondering, we donated school supplies like colorful notepads, pens, pencils, rulers and animal-shaped erasers. Even the most basic of things can make a difference. They were so excited. Bless their little hearts. It was out of school hours, but children were still around when we went back. Man, that's sad. I really hoped that it was something that had improved over the years. Where did you go out of interest? We went to Grenada, St. Lucia, Tobago. I went to Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. Those who get jobs in the tourism industry do far better than those who don't. I think things have improved slightly over 20 years, but there's still a lot of poverty. The way time is experienced differently. I'm from the USA, and when my dad and I fortunately had the money to go to Italy through a college program as a teen, the first thing that struck me was how laid back people were there. In a lot of places, it was a very stereotypically slowed down lifestyle, with people walking down the street, drinking during the afternoon, conversing and just causally dining outside. People didn't seem to be in a rush for anything, and while I'm sure they have their problems as well, there was much more centeredness across the country. People were much more focused on what was happening right now and what was in front of them. This was in 2008 though, so before the explosion of smartphones and social media. Also from US, I worked on farms in Italy. They couldn't believe how fast I worked. I was trying to be fast and efficient. It was puzzling to them. They kept telling me to slow down. It took a lot of effort for me to slow down, take coffee breaks and really enjoy being in the moment. Wish I could import that feeling here. Heck, I felt the same way working in Japan, which has this weird stereotype of being all work focused. That's a lie, it's all about butts in the seat time, not actual productivity. When I was banging through work, like I considered a normal pace, I'd have 5 hours left of the day to do nothing except look busy, because you can't not look busy for the boss or you'll get yelled at. I had to learn to space myself out for work, so I always looked productive, but wasn't making the others, especially the Japanese staff, look bad by comparison. I hated it. I'm one of those people who will find the most efficient way of doing things, and doing it their way, i.e. a lot of wasted copy-paste effort, just made me stress out more than if they had doubled my workload, to be honest. For example, I got yelled at for using formulas in Excel to do the calculations for me. They wanted it all done by hand every week. No thank you. I cannot tell you the abuses of Excel that happen here. It should be a crime against humanity to use it like a word processor and refuse to use any functions or graphing pivot table generation. New York. So many people. London. So many people. I've been in Sydney quite a few times. I'm Australian. And it's nowhere near as busy. About New Yorkers, they mind their own business. But if you ask them for help, they are some of the nicest people. On the subway, I asked a woman if the train went to a particular station. I always get on trains going the wrong way. She said yes, and every stop on the way to the station she counted down for me. 3 more stops, 2 more stops, 1 more stop, get ready. And it wasn't just her. I asked a guy sweeping the streets which way some museum was. He said, I think it's this way. The guy then proceeded to walk me a long block so he could confirm it was the right way and point to the directions from a better vantage. We went into a restaurant near closing time. We had eaten dinner there and went back after a show to get dessert. The bartender recognized me from earlier and I explained the food was so good we had to come back for dessert. He said, hold on, tell it to the owner. I repeated it to the owner and he invited us to join the staff for karaoke and late night snacks. We started at 10 PM and we tapped out around 3 AM. The restaurant guys were still partying hard. Anyway, New Yorkers are supposedly cold or ignore everyone. They do ignore people. Unless they have a reason to engage, then they can be super nice. Went to Gdańsk, Poland a few years ago with work, and I was not expecting how beautiful the place was, especially the old town. The people were friendly and the food was delicious. I then went to Krakow 2 years later and was equally impressed. Yeah, I went to Krakow. This city has lots of tiny dwarf statues and the salt mines in Poland. I would definitely recommend going there if you're ever going back to Poland. As a native, I 100% recommend seeing the Spilakkk salt mines to anyone coming to Poland. I live in the north and only been there once. But holy heck, it's so pretty. I would love to come see it again one day. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.